On this episode of the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino, we break down OU's linebackers in the Cheetah position, and then we do a short Q&A. Please download and subscribe to the podcast, rate it 5 stars, and write us a good review. Follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search Oklahoma Breakdown on any of those, and you'll find us. All right, our man Michael Hosty will kick this thing off. It's time for the Oklahoma Breakdown. It's a beautiful Wednesday, March 20th, and you're listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino. Riverwind is Oklahoma City's premier casino experience, and there are so many reasons why Riverwind is consistently voted OKC's #1 casino, but it all starts with their amazing variety of gaming thrills and excitement. Riverwind's beautiful award-winning environment plays host to more than 2,800 of the latest electronic games with a huge selection of table games, including blackjack match, roulette, and Teddy's favorite, craps. No matter what your game, Riverwind has it in spades and hearts. And to learn more about their gaming promotions and entertainment options in the month of March, all you got to do is visit riverwind.com. Riverwind Casino, simply the best. Now we're recording this in advance. Ted, it's spring break week in the state of Oklahoma. How do you feel? How do you think? Let's make a prediction. How do you think it's going for you?
Well, hopefully I've safely arrived to the spring break destination. And depending, what time do you usually release this? Maybe it doesn't matter. I'll have a cold beverage in hand. Weather's going to be beautiful, feet in the sand. It's going to be great.
I'm going to release this at like 4:30 in the morning just so I can ask you when you get home, did you actually have a beverage in your hand at 4:30 a.m.?
Yeah, it might be a water, and maybe I'll be for a morning. Well, no, I won't be out for a morning jog. No, that won't happen.
Yeah, but I hope everyone out there is having an awesome spring break, and we've got a fun episode for you. So, like we've done the last couple of years, we're going to start our roster breakdown for what OU's roster looks like right now during spring practice. And we know it could change between now and the fall, right? There's still another portal window. You still got some other freshmen that aren't on campus yet that'll be coming in June. So there's going to be some slight changes, but we like to start doing a deep dive on what this thing looks like, because what would you say, 95%, 98% of the roster is set, Ted? I
Yep,
think that's a fair way to look at
yep,
it.
yep. No, I mean there may be a little post spring change up, but yeah, for the most part, what you see is what you get. And I would say overall, I kind of like where the roster's at.
So I was thinking about what position group should we do first? And since you're about to go on vacation, I was going, I'm going to make Teddy do as much work as possible. We're going to talk about linebackers. I'm going to turn my mic off and let you cook. And we were having a debate whether, hey, should we lump the Cheetah position into this discussion or not? And maybe that describes the Cheetah position perfectly. Like, is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? Is he both? What is he? But we decided to lump the Cheetah into this conversation as well. But Ted, let's start with the inside backers. You've got a new linebacker coach, new defense coordinator in Zach Alley. But when you think about what you're trying to see from this group throughout the spring, the growth you're trying to witness for this group as a whole, the conversation starts with Danny Stutsman.
Yeah, it does. Well, first, let's talk about Zach Alley a little bit. I really like Ted Roof, respected him a ton as a linebacker coach and as a defensive coordinator. Um, I do think that the there's going to be more of a seamless connection between Zach Alley and Brent Venables, and that's going to come with the defense overall. That's also going to come with the linebacker position. Zach Alley learned what he knows about the linebacker position directly from Brent Venables, and you're going to see that. The drills, the meeting room, there is a definite method to the madness with Coach Venables, and you're going to see they're going to be more synced up, Zach Alley and Venables are, than what Roof and Venables were before. And that's nothing against Roof. It's just a simple fact that Zach Alley and Brent Venables have been together longer. Danny Stutsman, I'm thrilled that he's back. I think he made a good decision, a smart decision. I think the biggest thing for Stutsman is a leadership role, obviously on the defense, and he's been good about that in the past. But leadership, it's like a lot of other things. It changes in the expectations in leadership more. And we all know how good of a player Danny Stutsman is. The next step for a player like Danny is how good can you make the players around you, not just how good of a player are you. And that comes from leadership, that comes from mentoring, that comes from like taking guys under your wing, holding guys accountable, being forceful about it whenever you need to. I think that's the next step for him as a leader, on and off the field. As a player, I think Danny has, first, his strengths. I think he's a really good tackler. I think he is a really good playmaker that has really strong instincts. I think he does a really good job on the line of scrimmage, whether they're playing the bear front and he's like the stand-up edge guy, or whenever he aligns in a tough position in an A or B gap where he's up in the gap. I think he does some really good things out of that. Like if he's part of a blitz and part of a twist package, he does a really good job with that. I think he is massively improved in his underneath zone coverage. And a lot of the reason why he's good is just because he has a great frame for it. He's 6'4", he's long arms, he's a big guy out there that covers a lot of space in a quarterback's vision. I think the biggest improvement that he can make is block protection against offensive linemen. He ends up on the ground too much. And I think it's common. I think it's the last thing to come for a college linebacker because it's the hardest thing. You are, often giving up 100 pounds against these guys, and you're trying to decipher where they're going. Where do I fit? Where's the ball carrier? Is it play action? Like there's a lot going on before a linebacker actually diagnoses the play and is in, 100% downhill taking on a blocker mode. But I think that's where he can see the most improvement. He's not bad there. It's just, I think, kind of the last frontier for him as a player. And that's just natural in his progression. I think last year was, of massive improvement on where he had been previously. And last year to this year, there's not going to be a massive improvement. At least what we see watching him. The improvement is going to come in consistency, in pad level, in technique, in being in the right place more often, in grading higher, in getting guys lined up quicker, in telling people what the play is before they snap the ball, and all of those things, I think, is where you're going to see Stutsman improve. It's just going to be harder to see visually, because the year before to last year, we saw, look lost at times, missing tackles. I mean, it's easy to see a big improvement from where he was the year before to last year. It's going to be harder to see it from where he was last year to this year, but it's going to be there. But if I had to pick the one thing that he needs to improve on, it's the block protection.
I think if I added anything, it would just take away from how good of the breakdown, how good that was. So I'm just not going to add anything. I think you kind of nailed it, man.
Well, I think there'll be things to add, and we'll see after we watch him in spring ball a little bit and see what the next things he needs to do are. But all that to say, I think Stutsman is in an excellent position to be an all SEC type of player, to be in a position to be an All-American, an award winner, at the end of the year. And a lot of that is obviously how he is as an individual player, where I think this defense is going to be. And the dude is a massive personality that is entertaining as hell to watch. And I think the rest of the country is going to see a lot more of that this year with him in the SEC.
No doubt about it. Now, when you look at the inside backer group right now through these couple spring practices, it's been Stutsman and Kip Lewis running with the first group. You've had Kobie McKinzie and Jaren Kanak running with that second group. Ted Kip is he's still light. He's like, you want that 214 number to be 220. In an ideal world, he's 225, but he's light, but the guy can play. I mean, the instincts were, it was so clear watching him last year that he just has a natural ability when it comes to getting to the football. But what's in this spring, kind of what's the next step for Kip?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Kip has tremendous instinct. Um, there's typically two type of players at linebacker, and like you're not A or B, you're like somewhere in the range of this type of player. You have kind of the instinctual player that plays off his physical gifts, uses speed and athleticism and instincts to find the football. And then you have the player that, how do I fit in the defense? What is my responsibility? And I build from there. And I think Kip is the instinct driven player. And I think you can have unbelievable players from both sides of that equation. The instinctual player excels in the run game and in plays that happen right now, right? My instinct says he's cutting back, and a lot of times you're right. My instinct says this is a run, you're selling out downhill right away. Where you get in trouble is oftentimes in football, the play goes past your instincts. And even though my instincts say that it's a run and they're going over here, well, it may be play action. Your pass responsibility is over there. And it's usually the pass game, like where you fit in zone coverage, like all of those things. Like you can't bail on your responsibility because what your instincts are saying. And you have to learn that a little bit. And I think Kip, because of that, like I would say what he needs to improve on the most is his pass responsibilities, pre and post snap communication stuff, making sure you're in the right place. And it's kind of the same progression you see from everyone. I would say it's the same thing we saw from Danny. Like the mental mistakes he needs to cut down on, the aggressiveness, the tackling, all of those things are really good. It's cleaning up the consistency aspect of it, the mental aspect of it, making sure you know your responsibility and you lock down your responsibility before you let the instincts take over. He's light at 214. It appears that he's a hard gainer. I mean, those guys exist. I'm not beat up about the fact that he's 214. I think he can absolutely thrive at 214. But you got to play lower. You got to have better technique. You got to be smarter. Like everything that you're giving up from being smaller, you have to be that much better at all of the other ends of it. And that's going to be difficult for him. It's easier just to run around and be the biggest, fastest, strongest guy on the field. We can't all be that. So we got to find a way to take advantage of what we have and mitigate the downside of what we don't. So he just needs to get better technique wise, play lower, be lined up in the absolute perfect place. Don't give anything up before the snap. I think that's the biggest thing for Kip Lewis.
Seems like you know a lot about linebacker play. I'm just, as I sit here and listen to this, I'm not going to add anything because it will just make it worse.
But it doesn't. It's all like just intuitive stuff, though. It's not like there's any like real deep thought put into it, is it?
Well,
Doesn't it
yeah,
seem that way?
linebacker's easy. I mean, that's why you can take the dumbest player ever and put him at linebacker.
Right.
But now looking at looking at the other guys, you want to have what, at least four that you feel really good about, because there's going to be guys that get banged up. You know, you're going to want to rotate some guys, especially early in the season. Maybe you're in a game really hot type of situation, but Jaren Kanak has played a lot of snaps. We've seen Kobie McKinzie at times. When you look at those two guys that seem at this point to be the initial backups in the inside backer spots, what are you kind of looking for from those two?
I think Kobie McKinzie is due to have a really good year. And it wouldn't shock me if he ended up being the starter at Mike. You know, whenever Danny and Kip are out there, Danny plays the Mike and Kip plays the Will. But Danny, they've wanted him to play the Will backer. That's been his spot. And Kobie is a Mike backer. So I and that's what Kanak was playing, was the Mike as well last year. So, you know, I think Kobie, he's had a really good offseason. Again, he's stacked a couple of really nice off seasons together. He's really worked on his body composition. He's lost some weight. He's moving better. But he is still, even though he's lost some weight, he's still a really good in the box linebacker. He's heavy handed. Like, he knocks linemen back. He's a knockback tackler. You know, whenever he meets a guy in the hole, I really like what I've seen from. He's a good blitzer, and he's really smart. Kobie McKinzie is really smart. He sees the whole picture really well. I think he needs to work on processing speed, being able to process faster. Um, you know, naturally, when you're a good in the box thumper Mike backer, you struggle a little bit in the pass game, right? Mentally, you're thinking, I hope they run the damn ball. So you struggle a little bit in the pass game, and I think that's where, not that he's bad there, I just think that that's where he could have, you know, a lot of improvement. Mike Backer's bumped out of the box over the number 3 wide receiver a bunch, so they put you in space, and he's improved a lot in space. But route progressions, where he fits in the you know, the pass coverage, I think Kobie could work on that. Moving backwards is always more difficult than moving forwards. I think he could work there. Like I said, he's a really good blitzer, and he's a great tackler in the box. Out of the box, it's more difficult, right? You're faster guys in space. You know, in the box, it's about your physical pressure, your presence, your punch, like bringing your lower half with you whenever you're making a tackle. He's great at that. Outside of the box, it's your eyes, right? How you tackle with your eyes and your position on the football, knowing where your help is, you know, angles, you know, trying to pin a guy in either by another player, by the sideline. You know, all of that's happening at once. And I think Kobie can improve as a tackler outside the box. But that goes for all these guys, because that's the hardest thing. That's something that you're always working on there. But if he can get down, if he can make improvements in his pass game defense, the zone stuff, tackling outside of the box, and just kind of overall understanding of the defense, which I think he's going to have. Like, you may see a massive jump from him because he's smart. He's smart in a sense where, like, I like whenever you talk to him, there's a deeper level of process going on there mentally, which I really like. So I think the ceiling for Kobie McKinzie is incredibly high, and it wouldn't shock me if we saw a massive jump with him this spring.
And you're hoping you're seeing a similar jump with Kanak, right? Because we know the physical tools are there. The speed is there. He's sitting at 226 pounds right now, which maybe it's a little lighter than you want him to be, but I mean, he showed moments last year and almost showed his best moments once he lost his starting job, where he was playing a little, maybe a little freer. I don't know. You would know better than I would, but he's a guy that they're going to need, and he needs to improve a lot throughout the spring.
I think when I see Kanak play, he reminds me of myself in a sense that, you know, he's not limited by his size. He's got great size. He's not limited by his athletic ability. He's great top speed. He can fly. He's really agile. Like when you go out there and you watch the linebackers do the drills, Jaren Kanak is the guy that you say, that's the best player. He's super fluid. He's smart. He knows the defense. He's I'm not saying he's perfect. He makes mistakes, but what holds him back is the fear of making a mistake, fear of not lining up right, fear of missing the tackle. The coach is like in his head constantly. It's all he's thinking about. So he tries to go too fast, and he's tight, and he's always pressing, and he's been there long enough now to where he's probably going to relax this spring. At least I hope he relaxes. And that's why it looked like he was playing his best football after he got replaced, is because at that point you just kind of say, well, screw it. Right. And you just go out there and you play free and you play fast, and you're not as worried about making a mistake to lose your job, because that bad thing has already happened. So I think that is what has held Kanak back a little bit. I think there's going to be a big jump with him, but the bottom line is we got a bunch of guys that could play, and there's two spots. That's what's crazy. And I think we're in a really good spot depth wise. I hope everyone stays engaged. And I think Kanak can get better with just an overall understanding of the defense, to where, like, whenever you're worried about messing up, eliminate everything that you can. And the easiest way to eliminate the most mistakes and the most thinking and being in your own head is to know everything without even thinking about it, to where it's second nature. And you can eliminate all of that and then just worry about playing football. You'll be able to free up that athleticism. I think that Kanak probably, like, all things being equal, probably has the highest ceiling of anyone there. It's whether or not he can, like, just kind of allow it to happen, to get in the right place mentally, to trust it, to have confidence. Like, you can tell the difference. You take the same exact player and watch them play and know that they have confidence. It looks totally different than a guy that's unsure, that is afraid of making a mistake, that's, am I in the right place? Do I belong? The same guy can look totally different. And I think that's what we've seen at times with Kanak.
The other two names at this point, and we'll see how the inside backer room develops over these next couple months, but Lewis Carter is a name that comes up a lot. Dude is an absolute ball of muscle. And then Samuel Omosigho is a guy that, they're kind of trying to figure out where he fits in this defense. But you look at his size, 6'2", 227. He is a good looking football player already, even though he's still a young guy. But those are the other two names really to know for this inside backer group. Where do you kind of see those guys fitting?
It's really hard to say haven't seen a whole lot of these guys. I know Lewis Carter. I love the size that he is. He's, he's 6 foot. He's a little shorter than kind of the rest of the group, but he's up in the 220s. He's super explosive. He is, explosive side to side movement. Whenever he sees it and comes downhill, he's aggressive as hell. Um, has tremendous instincts and just football player. Is kind of how you label him. I just haven't seen a whole lot of him. If he was able to get up to speed with everyone else in the knowledge department of the defense, of how to play, how to run the system, how to be in the system, how it all fits together, if he could get to the same level as everyone else in that department, I think he could compete for one of those jobs, no question. It's just whether or not he can get there. And he's one of those guys that whenever he's kind of like Kip in a sense, that when he makes a play, it's loud, right? It's like, whoa, who is that guy? So whenever there's a player that stands out on film the way Lewis Carter does, if you eliminate a lot of the mental mistakes and we just get into this frame where we see a bunch of loud, aggressive, nice plays, you find yourself on the football field really quick, because the bottom line is it's about production. And he's one of those guys that you feel like if he's out there and he plays 65, 70 snaps a game, he's going to produce. So I think he may be the wild card, like where he fits in this rotation and in this competition this spring. I'm not exactly sure. It it wouldn't shock me if he's a guy that's still like what you would call on the 3 deep, like not really in that full 2-man rotation. But also wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden like he's rotating in at Will Backer and getting some reps with the first team.
I will say, when you walk out there, you see Lewis Carter and you go, is that an NFL running back? Like
Yeah.
he is built. That's kind of his build. It's like a between the tackles running back.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it all comes together for them. I'm intrigued by Omosigho just because I think he's kind of a long, athletic guy that can really, really run. You got Phil Pichotti still coming off the knee injury, so not going to hear much from him, if at all, in spring ball. We'll see what it looks like after summer workouts. But the group as a whole, the inside backer group, it does feel it feels deeper. I feel as good about it as I felt in quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like the mix of there's just a great mix of player guys that have different strengths and weaknesses, like different size. You got Stutsman who's 6'4", 240, down to a guy like Lewis Carter who's 6 foot, maybe under, and 220 plus pounds. Like a bunch of guys that have like tremendous athletic upside. The whole group can run. The whole group is strong in the weight room, and there's tremendous upside. And I I'm as happy with where we are at backer right now. It's the best. I mean, we've talked about what, 6 guys here. It's the best 6 guys at inside backer we've had at Oklahoma at the same time in as long as I can remember. I mean, we went from a position of pure weakness where only Stutsman has played any amount of snaps at all to where, as we sit today, I'd be comfortable with most any of the guys in this group starting on a given Saturday. And that is rare.
It's rare, but it doesn't surprise you at all when your head football coach is Brent Venables.
Yeah, I know. They're
It's kind
getting
of the
deeper.
expectation.
Like it's going to be 8 players by this time next year, 10. But I mean, we'll have more inside backers on the roster than anyone.
Yeah. Let's talk a little Cheetah. But first, Love's Travel Stops is now offering a nationwide 10-cent per gallon discount on gas and auto diesel. Just download the Love's Connect app and scan your barcode at the prompt on screen and watch that price drop 10 cents per gallon. Across the country, the Love's Connect app unlocks exclusive deals that help any traveler plan their route or meal on the highway. So before you hit the road, be sure to download the Love's Connect app to save 10 cents per gallon and experience the country's best highway hospitality at Love's Travel Stops. Love's also has you covered if you forget your phone charger or headphones with their expanded mobile to go zone. And of course, don't forget to grab yourself some of that delicious Java Amore.
And celebrate with a Schooner All-American Ale, the official craft beer of OU Athletics from Coop Ale Works, named after the iconic Sooner schooner that races across Owen Field after an OU score. You can join in on the celebration with an ice-cold beer from Coop Ale Works. You can enjoy it at the Palace on the Prairie, at OU Athletic events, at the bar, at the tailgate, and in the comfort of your own home. For more information on Schooner All-American Ale, visit schoonerale.com. Must be 21 to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Schooner All-American Ale, the taste of game day.
And we love Simple Modern. Simple Modern is an Oklahoma-owned company whose mission is to exist, to give generously, and they do. Simple Modern has given away millions to more than 100 nonprofit partners in the last 8 years, and they give away at least 10% of profits each year. We love supporting a company that's working to make a difference in Oklahoma and beyond. And Simple Modern products are also the perfect swag for any small business owner. You can customize tumblers, water bottles, and coffee mugs to give to current or potential customers. Check it all out at simplemodern.com. Ted, how you feeling about the Cheetah spot? With all of the great reviews that Kendel Dolby got at the end of last season, and that he's getting, stuff that we're hearing about him throughout this offseason, the way he started spring practice, I'm starting to wonder, is he too good to where you just have to keep him on the field all the time and live with some of the bad situations you're going to be put in because he's not a big guy at 5'11", 182? Or is this Cheetah spot still, hey, you're going to probably have a true nickel guy in Dolby and then have more of a Sam Backer type guy in McCullough? Or let's not forget Harrington, even though coming off the knee injury, he's kind of the blend of both. So I'm so interested to see what happens at the Cheetah spot.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's going to be. Kendel Dolby has really, really been talked about a lot, and the matchup with him and Burks is iron sharpen iron through the spring. It sounds like, so that's going to be fun to see how those two guys progress. But yeah, Kendel Dolby has been really praised from the staff about like where he went from the beginning of last year, whenever he's kind of thrown into the mix. Remember, they thought Harrington was going to be the guy, and he goes down pretty quickly in the season. And all of a sudden, they're to a degree scrambling, and Kendel Dolby starts playing there and ends up having a really nice season. Well, he's not going to be starting from square one. Where he is today compared to where he was during the season isn't even close. And he's got great athleticism. You're right. The true nickel, kind of a corner playing that spot, covering those slot receivers, which really is what you want, that type of athleticism there. And he's a really good tackler. He's physical. So I kind of expect him. I expect him to be the guy until they get into bigger formations, and that's whenever Dasan McCullough is going to factor in. Now, he's not going to be in the spring, I don't think. So at least like he may be doing some like non-contact stuff, or I don't know exactly what his role is going to look like. And maybe they will bring him in as a full participant. I'm not sure, but he's got tremendous upside. Like we've seen when Dasan is out there and they do anything where he's moving forward, he is a tremendous threat in the run game, in any of the bubble and tunnel stuff on the outside. He basically eliminates that spot completely whenever he's coming forward. Really needs to work on his pass coverage and stuff, understanding the space behind him. He's got great length at 6'5" in that spot. If he made some pretty big gains in the passing game on the stuff going backwards behind him, I think he could be incredibly dangerous. Harrington, it's all about how healthy can he stay. He understands it. Um, he's incredibly physical. He comes downhill well. He plays with, it was my favorite thing about him as a player is the speed and effort he plays with at all times. He is a high energy guy that he plays that way the entire time. I hope he stays healthy. I think he's just a tremendous asset for the football team. He can be depth at safety. He can obviously be depth or even the starter at the Cheetah spot. I mean, in a pinch, he could probably play inside backer for you if you needed him to. They'll have that 6-pack where they've got 3 down and they have an extra defensive back out there when they're in their dime. He could be a part of that. When they do the 3 safety Iowa State stuff, he could play in that. I mean, there's a lot of things that he adds as a football player just to go along with the excellent personality, the excellent leadership that you get from him. I mean, I think we're in a really good spot at Cheetah. And add Omosigho in there, who played some Cheetah last year. It wouldn't shock me if Lewis Carter got a little bit of run there at the Cheetah spot because of his athleticism. So, I mean, it's another position that is deep. And as you look at it, now you don't feel great about Dasan being out there against, like a true 4 wide look, but it's kind of a position where you look at it and you say, I wouldn't feel horrible with any of those 3 guys as the starting Cheetah, which, again, light years from where we were a year ago and 2 years ago. We had Deshaun White playing Cheetah. So, which nothing against him, it just wasn't his natural spot. Like, we've improved at this spot tremendously.
I think the biggest question right now is, and it's not like a bunch of SEC offenses are getting into, consistently getting into 2 and 3 tight ends, and like that's really how they operate.
Probably more of that in the
But
Big 12 than the rest of the SEC.
right, but that is, I do wonder, because Dolby's not an ideal fit for the Cheetah spot if a team decides, hey, we're gonna major in this against Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure, like, is McCullough the right guy for that as well? Like, does that maximize his strengths as a player? Because you look at it, he's long, and frankly, he's a little. I just think he's a little light. He's listed at 222 pounds. When you're talking about a traditional Sam backer coming into the core, you're thinking a guy that's, high 230s, 240 pounds, that can be really physical at the point of attack. I don't know if a bunch of SEC offenses go, hey, let's get in a couple of multiple tight end sets and just see how Oklahoma reacts. I don't know if pulling McCullough into the box and making him play a true Sam backer spot. I don't know if that's his strength. Can he develop that? Can he add a little more weight and size and, be more of a situational guy for those types of situations, while Dolby and Harrington are probably the guys playing the bulk of your snaps with the type of personnel groupings you're going to see. I don't know, but I do wonder if they get some big personnel. Is McCullough the answer in those situations, or is Omosigho more of a true Sam backer type of player? I don't know. I do think that's a question, though.
No, it is a good point. With and I don't see, the problem is you don't see a whole lot of it. Hopefully we see a ton of it with our offense this spring. Have to get out there and see, like, to where you could really sharpen your skills. The problem is you just don't see a lot of it. So it's hard for any of those guys to get really good at it, So like Dasan at 6'5", 225, because of that length, should be hell on a tight end to block. But if he doesn't have the great technique there, he's also a tall skinny target that if he doesn't have great technique, there's a lot of surface area for a blocker. So it's like either really good or the possibility of being really bad. So I'm with you. I'm curious to see how that goes. One thing to remember about Dasan McCullough is whenever he was at Indiana and transferred last year, he was like an inside guy that played on the edge too. And they plucked him out of that and put him out at Cheetah in space, fish out of water. And he made tremendous strides from spring ball until, whenever the season got rolling with how much ground he made up. Think about how far ahead of the game he is right now in spring compared to where he was last year. So it wouldn't shock me if like he makes some massive ground on all of those things, whether it's kind of playing that Sam spot against bigger personnel or being out in space. Like he could be one of those players that makes a massive jump to where it's like, wow, who is this guy? He could be one of those.
No doubt. Now, the knee injury, I do think it's really unfortunate because I thought, from a strength and explosiveness standpoint, like he needed to work on his lower body.
Mm-hmm.
And the knee injury, it kind of limits how much progress you can make throughout winter workouts throughout the spring when you're rehabbing a knee. But yeah, I'm really interested to see where he fits because man, he had some moments last season where you go, dang, that guy just makes plays, but you're going to be playing, week in and week out, you're going to be playing a higher level of competition, a more physical, just bigger guys in the SEC. And how does he adjust to that? How does he handle it? So I love what we're hearing about Dolby though. And
Yeah, I know.
that's where it gets interesting. If Harrington really bounces back well and is flying around and with all that energy, do they move Dolby somewhere else? Because I'd be shocked if he's not a starter somewhere with the way that they're talking about the guy. So that could create a interesting dynamic. Ultimately, you want to get your playmakers on the field as much as possible. So if Harrington really bounces back, I don't know what that means for Dolby or what it means for Harrington. Like, do they look at him in more of a traditional safety spot? I don't know, but that would be a good problem for them to run into.
No doubt. Well, here's the way I view it too. If you're not a starter on defense, you need to be a big contributor on special teams. So let's just assume that let's just say it's Stutsman at Mike and Kobie McKinzie, or Stutsman at Will, Kobie McKinzie at Mike. That's your starters on defense. Or you could throw anyone in there next to Stutsman if you want. But Kip Lewis, Jaren Kanak, Lewis Carter, Omosigho, Harrington, Dasan McCullough, like those are your core special teams guys. That's a hell of a core special teams group. Athletically, physically, like all of those guys can absolutely run. Like it should be a massive disappointment if Oklahoma's special teams, I'm not talking about the kicking and punting part or the catching and running. I'm talking about everything else. We should be hell on wheels on special teams. And you can't convince me of any other outcome other than that. Anything other than that is a massive disappointment. And that extends to like the guys, whoever's not going to be starting at safety. Like safety's going to be a hell of a competition at corner. I mean, we got corners that are 6'3", 220 pounds. Like we should be hell on wheels on special teams.
No doubt. Anything else? Inside backers, Cheetah. You didn't really break down those guys very well. So
Okay.
maybe
Well, I hope it comes across that I feel really good about this group, and it's one of the reasons I think that we will have the best defense that we've had at Oklahoma in as long as I can remember.
That makes me happy to hear you say that.
So don't expect too much out there, guys. No
Yeah.
pressure, right?
Yeah. No pressure. Now, we like to have fun with the Q&A stuff. So let's work a couple in here. But first,
All you grill masters, listen up. Didier Ranch delivers premium quality beef that is 100% raised in Oklahoma right to your front door. Go to didierranch.com, DIDIER ranch.com to order one of their premium quality beef boxes and use promo code Oklahoma15 for 15% off your order. Filet, ribeye, New York strip, sirloin, steak burgers. They've got it all, and they ship anywhere in the continental U.S., and Oklahomans can get deliveries in just 1 to 2 days. The only thing better than having a lot of premium beef on the O&D line is having premium beef delivered right to your front door. Didier Ranch, tradition tastes better.
and head to the garage for hand smashed patties, butter toasted buns, and some ice cold beer. It's the perfect spot to watch any big game, and with all the garage locations being open to 10 p.m. or later every night, it is the go-to late night spot. Visit eatatthegarage.com to find a location near you and order online from the garage in your neighborhood. NCAA tournament, garage is a perfect spot to watch
Yes,
those
it
games.
is.
Q&A, and this first one, I cannot wait to hear your answer. I'm not going to lie. This one comes from @dink_Toller. What are the top 5 things that get Teddy annoyed or worked up?
Number one thing is bad driving. Bad driving.
I could see
I,
you being very angry with people that drive the speed limit in the left lane.
well, I don't. I mean, it just kind of depends. I just don't block anyone in the left lane. If you sometimes if you're driving the speed limit and you're passing people, whatever, just don't block anyone. It's not a hangout spot. Um, I I the list of my annoyances with driving go on forever. Not pulling all the way up to the line whenever you're at a stoplight. Um, People whenever we're trying to merge that drive all the way up past the line and try and get up in front. Um, People that can't drive one speed on the highway that sometimes whenever I'm on a long trip, I'll pass the same car like 10 times. That's annoying as hell to me. I mean, there's a bunch of things. There's a bunch of things, but bad driving is number one on the list. I would say number two on the list is special teams rules in college football. That's like to me, that is it's a constant. You like to bring it up every broadcast too.
I tend to poke the bear a little bit when it comes to some special teams situations. The fair catch on the kickoff, I can see, or I can just hear a piece of your soul leaving your body every time that happens.
They're taking the game away from us. Taking the game away from us. The the exchange of possession in a football game should be and is a massive thing, and it should be treated as such. And they're trying to eliminate it. It's dumb.
So we've got bad driving and college football special teams rules as the top 2. Dink Toller asked for 5. You got a couple more just off the top of your head?
Um, streaming TV. Streaming TV.
The rewind and fast forward function. I have heard you complain once or twice about that.
It's stupid. It just doesn't. The whole thing just doesn't function right. It's too expensive. Like originally, everyone's like, "Oh, this is going to save money." No, it hasn't saved anyone money. It cost way more money than we could have ever imagined. Now you basically, for people that like haven't completely cut the cord, you're paying for everything like 5 times. It the audio levels are not right. You can't hear the dialogue. If you turn it up to hear the dialogue, like the explosions and stuff like blow the speakers out of your television. It's all terrible. It just doesn't function right. And it for me anyways, it hardly ever works like it's supposed to. And that
Bad
could be
driving,
me. Could be
special
me.
teams, streaming TV. Anything else really gets you going, really annoys you. We can only have three. That's it. Like if that's the top three, that's fine.
Unless you want to start talking about our government, and then you could really get me going. I could give you a list of 1,000 things there.
Yeah, you are you have some strong opinions with all of that stuff. We typically avoid that on the podcast just because
Right.
nothing good comes from that, but it
All right. I'll
is.
say it easier. Taxes.
Does anyone like taxes? I think we can all agree we don't like taxes, right?
There we go.
That's it. That's four, but it's good enough.
What about you? Come on. You don't get to just totally skip out on this. I know they asked
Well, he asked
for
for
mine.
yours.
I know, but you don't get, you're not off that easy.
I don't. One of my biggest pet peeves is like when people just don't appear to care about doing their job at a high level. And that's like any walk of life
Yeah.
where, because I kind of just think, hey, if you're going to do something, like try your best. It's kind of how I've just always been wired. And I just really don't like when people, like, some people, you just don't have the skill set for a certain thing. That's okay. But a lack of effort bothers me in any walk of life. And
No,
some
that's
people may
true.
say this and like, hey, your podcast stinks. Like you're not doing great. It's not from a lack of effort. Okay. We're putting
Right.
time into it, but that bothers me. The bad driving's a good one. Like when you're if you're driving in Oklahoma City to Dallas and you have to break your cruise because someone's going 5 miles an hour below the speed limit in the left lane, that bothers me. I really don't get that annoyed that often.
I mean, the driving one usually folds right into your number one. It's like it's a lack of effort or a lack of give a rip about what you're doing, right? You're responsible for not just yourself, for everyone else that's on the road and their time and their responsibilities and what they're trying to do. That's the biggest part of it because
It,
most people know how to drive well, right?
yeah,
It's a lack of
you would
effort.
think. And then one that, it's been a while back now. Uh, I started quite the dialogue on Twitter. People that don't pick up their dog's poop when they're walking them in a public place, I just think those people are the worst. The absolute worst. Don't be lazy. You took the
It,
dog there. You took the dog on the walk. Pick it up.
it goes back to the lack of effort thing, right?
Exactly.
That's
Like,
right.
come on, man. But those are a couple. I mean,
Yeah.
I think those are all reasonable as well. I think that's
That's a
reasonable.
I think we hit a solid list.
All right.
Good enough.
Let's move on to the next one. Football question from Ryan Kenyon. He asks, based on our personnel on defense, do you foresee us playing more 3-down variations, meaning more linebackers? Ted, I would say that this question is probably directed at you.
I don't know. I think that there's a chance of it. I would say like you always want to take advantage of your best personnel. And I would say our best personnel is backer and safety. And that includes the cheetah spot. And our weakest position is interior defensive line. So naturally, you would say that we need to get more backers and safeties on the field and less defensive line. So, and from what I've heard, I think Zach Alley is maybe a fan of or has an interest in the Iowa State, like the three safety type of defense that Iowa State has made popular. That doesn't mean that that translates to what they're going to do at Oklahoma. And I know Coach Venables likes that scheme and has studied it to a large degree, has spent time at Iowa State. And I know that everyone defensively wants to be multiple, and I get that. I don't want to be multiple. If I were the defensive coordinator, I would not switch. Like, you got to do some different things, obviously, but like to come in and out of the Iowa State, like defense is, you have to have an identity and you have to live in what you do if you want to get good at it. Like, Iowa State is great at it because they do it all day, every day. Their three-man front defensive line, they hit and two gap and separate all day. It's all they do in individual drill, in inside drill, in blitz drill, in team drill. It's all they do. That's why they're good at it. So to switch between a four-man front and a three-man front, where it's a totally different world for the defensive line, I'm just not a fan of that. And what it does to your back end, it changes the way you fit. It changes like how the coverages break down and how you rotate. I'm just a fan of finding what you are good at and becoming elite at that thing. So all of that to say, I don't know. It's a possibility.
Right. When you look at the personnel, could it make a lot of sense for them to get more backers and safeties on the field? Absolutely. But I'm with you, man. I think the Iowa State way of doing things, it's a way of life.
That's it. That's how defense is anywhere, though. Like, you have to know your thing, and the players know it's their thing, and that's how you win. And I talk about it. People hate hearing about it, but way back, one of the big things in defense was like the Tampa style defense, the Tampa 2 coverage. You played it 80% of the snaps in a football game, 80% of the snaps in practice. It's all what your individual drills were aimed towards, is though that exact coverage and how you play that coverage and how you defend against its weaknesses. Like, you know what the weaknesses in it are, and you prepare yourself for those things. You drill the weaknesses. So that's just kind of the world that I'm from, is you find what you do. It's like ingrained in the way that you play on that side of the ball, but we'll see.
We'll see. Got a couple more questions. But first, attention business owners, you need Insurica in your life. Insurica is one of the country's largest insurance brokers with 30 offices throughout Oklahoma, Texas, and the Southwest. Insurica is able to customize programs by accessing the latest information from many insurance carriers. They compare and contrast coverage offerings and pricing in order to design a cost-effective, comprehensive program to meet your business's specific needs. If your business partners with Insurica, you'll save huge amounts of money and take back control of your total cost of risk. If your business wants to be best in class, connect with Insurica at insurica.com. That's INSURICA.com.
And head to opolisclothing.com for our podcast merchandise and the best OU gear out there. That's OPOLIS clothing.com. Use promo code TED, TED, for 10% off. That's opolisclothing.com. Use promo code TED for 10% off. Buttery soft and 10% off.
This is a good one. Comes from @Jared Fergie, who asks, if you were to do a non-sports related podcast, what would it be about?
Well,
That's a lot of thought going on.
what do you think?
I
What's your answer?
and this is something that I've contemplated doing more on here is I just like I like learning about successful people like in their
Mm,
stories. And
yeah.
there's a bunch of different podcasts out there that are along these lines of like, hey, you're interviewing successful entrepreneurs, and I would love to do more of that maybe during the off season on here, like successful Oklahomans and their stories, like their background, how they got there, how they built their business, or how they got to the level
Hmm.
of success and whatever. I just enjoy, and maybe it goes back to my number one pet peeve. Like I enjoy people that are good at what they do.
Yeah.
And I enjoy learning about the path they took to get there and the setbacks, the triumphs, what worked, what didn't. I just really like learning about successful people, or you don't even have to be. I'm not even talking about financially successful people. I'm just accomplished people in their field and their journey to get there. So I would love to do that, especially people in the state of Oklahoma that have found a lot of success. And I just think learning about those people's journeys and like the lessons that they learned along the way to get to where they're at, I just think I find that extremely interesting.
Yeah. That is good. I would
I
like that.
also love offensive line play. So I just,
Yeah.
but I think that would be fun to explore some of those people's stories. You'd have to do a bunch of research and learn about them. And I'm kind of into that type of stuff. So yeah, I think that's the answer. I really don't know much else but sports at this point in life.
Yeah. You know, I I have a bunch of like just general interest things that like my main interests are like most sports. Like how many sports podcasts are there about football, baseball, basketball? Like all of them.
Correct.
And most of my sports interest doesn't have anything to do with those things. I'm interested in like track and field. I'm interested in like Olympic lifting, like like strength stuff, like world's strongest man stuff. Um, I'm interested in like cars and not so much like the collection of cars, but kind of how they work and like the engineering behind them. So I have like a wide range of just like things that I enjoy to like how they work and the functioning of those things. All right. I I probably spent 2 hours last night on how dams are constructed and like in depth on how different clutch systems work for vehicles. So like I'm all over the place on stuff. So I don't know like
How do you marry that all together?
yeah, like it's such a wide range of things. Like I don't know how like if you could ever put that in a podcast or not.
It's
Because
just a
I know a podcast on clutches would not be a thing, right? So
maybe it could
I don't
just be a podcast of, hey, you're gonna learn something random today.
the random podcast. There you go.
Just hey, random knowledge. There are a lot of people out there like you. There's people out there that just like to learn about
Mhm.
whatever. So
Yeah,
maybe you're on to something, Ted. I don't know. The random
who
stuff.
knows?
Learn something
Who
random
knows?
today with Ted Lehman.
I like it.
How about this one? Jesse John sent us a question. I live in Wisconsin and curious what makes Oklahoma a great place to live. It doesn't get as cold as it does in Wisconsin. So there's one.
First and foremost, that is
But
it.
it does get cold. We get some snow every once in a while. We get some. I would say most people's most people's answer would be two main points. Number one, the people for the majority like are just nice. There's nice people that just treat you well for the most part. Whether you want to call it Southern hospitality, I don't know what you call it, but you want to call it the Oklahoma standard. I don't know. People who come and visit us from other areas of country, they always mention it. It is just for whatever reason, people here seem to be pleasant for the most part to other people. And then I think the second thing a lot of people would mention is cost of living. Like it's you can get a lot of value as far as whether it's land, your house, and it's a reasonably priced place to live. And that ties into home prices and land prices and real estate, but also the cost of food at restaurants, like all that. And it's just the cost of living is very reasonable.
Yeah. No, I agree with all those things. It's always different what other people like and what they don't like. Um, I would say that we have a lot of variety, and people may say, "What?" Well, you have like when you contrast the central to western part of the state with the central to eastern part of the state, like with the landscape is the vastly different. You got flat plains on one side, you have like the beginning of the Ozarks on the other. You have tremendous amount of lakes. You've got all kinds of outdoor activities from hiking, rock climbing, scuba in some of the beautiful clear lakes. You've got off-road sports. You've got all kinds of stuff. Obviously, great hunting and fishing. So there's for the people that like outdoor stuff, there's a ton of outdoor stuff. And then at the same time, you get enough of the city living and things that come with that in Tulsa and Oklahoma City with you get big attractions like concerts and entertainment. You've got a professional sports team. Like the cuisine in Oklahoma is excellent in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, just the restaurants and stuff that you get. And like what you mentioned is like the people are nice. I think the reason the people are nice is because you have a low population density. You look at places where people are known as traditionally being angry, it's high population density. So like we're spread out. Like what we would consider bad traffic, like going to Oklahoma City from Norman, that is not bad traffic. For anyone who's ever lived in like Houston or Atlanta or Los Angeles or any of those places, like we don't have bad traffic. We don't even have traffic. That's not even a thing here. So I think a lot of the things that built in that you worry about in other places that have high population density, you don't worry about in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot there, but that's the food is good. People that come
Compared
and
to what it
visit
was
us.
like 15 years ago, it's crazy.
Yeah, and having the Thunder now is a really, really big deal for the entire state, not just Oklahoma City. And then I do I appreciate having all four seasons.
Yeah. Well, that factors into the variety thing, man.
I like having winter and then spring and then summer and then fall. It just I don't know. I appreciate the differences in each time of the year. It probably would have been easier to dive into some of the bad things. If you have bad allergies, Oklahoma is not the place for you. Like,
Right. Yeah.
but I
Wind.
there are a lot of great things about the state. and it's I mean, there's a reason that it continues to grow and grow and grow, and I just can't wait to see what. And it's not only Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but just how the state continues to grow over these next 15 to 20 years. Because you think back of what it looked like, especially Oklahoma City, what it looked like 20 years ago, and now the way that it looks now, it's just the growth it's exciting, but you
Yeah,
don't want to
I'll
grow
tell you.
too much.
That's right. And you start to lose some of those things. What's interesting is I always make this joke on my radio show that Oklahoma is the center of the world, the center of like the sports world, because there's this really interesting. We are often at the center of whatever thing is kind of happening out there. Um, Baker Mayfield was one of the things, a couple of times he's been one of the things. Kyler Murray has been like, there's Oklahoma people that are often like deeply involved in whatever the big moment is at the time, like all the Kevin Durant stuff. And I know it's interesting for such a small population where we're geographically located that we insert ourselves into the biggest stories around the country often.
Yeah. Let's hit one more just because I want to help our man Derek S out really quick. He asks, when you guys talk about 11 personnel or 22 personnel, could you give some insight into what you are referencing? I know certain formations, but actually explain the differences. Ted, would you like to tackle this question or do you want me to do it?
Up to you.
Derek, it's simple. There's not a lot of thought here, man. The first number. So when you talk about 11 personnel, the first number is how many running backs are on the field. The second number is how many tight ends are on the field. So 10 personnel means there's one running back, there's 0 tight ends, meaning there's 4 wide receivers. Because remember, you've got your 5 offensive linemen, you've got your quarterback, that's 6. There's 11 guys on the field at one time on offense. So where are the other 5 guys? Like, who are the other 5 guys? And that's what the personnel grouping. So if it is 22 personnel, that means there are 2 backs, 2 tight ends, and 1 wide receiver. If it's 13 personnel, there is 1 back, 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. The numbers basically is who is on the field other than the O-line and the quarterback. So who are the other 5 football players on the field? That's what the personnel grouping
the wide
number
receiver
tells you.
number is always like the given. After you do the running back and the tight end, the receiver number is not mentioned because it's a given because it's always from 5.
Correct.
So that's where that comes from.
Have we not done a good job of explaining that? Do we need to do
It's
maybe
just
this
not
is
it's not like an intuitive thing. It's like one of those inside deals that if it's never really explained fully, it just kind of sounds like what is that? I understand it.
maybe during the summer, you know how we did the in the weeds stuff during the season? Maybe during the summer when things are a little slow, we could do a series of like football 101 stuff, like things we reference on the podcast that maybe if you don't have a lot of football knowledge, we could help them out. I don't know exactly what we would dive into there, but maybe that's something we can explore.
Let me ask you this. What's interesting is when I was at Oklahoma, we did not use the number system for personnel.
All words.
All words. And we started the transition to doing that kind of like my last year. We tinkered with it a little bit, but it was already kind of ingrained, so we didn't change. I bet they changed it the next year. Like 11 personnel was spread. Like, so what I was going to ask though is offensively, do you guys use that number system?
No. Typically,
I
it's
didn't think you
the
did.
offenses that I played in. Typically, especially when you get the NFL, like if you're going 11 personnel, they call it zebra. If you're
Zebra,
going 2 tight ends,
tiger.
they call it tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it
That's
depends
the old
on,
that's the Bill Walsh system, right? The West
yeah.
Coast.
So you actually see the personnel groupings now more used on cards from the sideline for the defense.
Yeah.
Like they are in, like they'll hold up a card that says 12, and you know from a
Mhm.
game plan standpoint, hey, this is our personnel package when they're in one back and two tight ends. It's
Yeah.
more of a defensive thing. I don't think very many offenses go, hey, we're getting in 11. At,
Yeah.
at least I don't hear that.
I
There's
think
always some silly name for the personnel groupings. Like if you're getting in your jumbo package offensively, it's going to be rhino or elephant. I don't know why it's always animals. It seems to always be animals, but
yeah.
that's the type of verbiage that I grew up in.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm trying to remember all what they were at OU. Like spread was 11. Like Tiger, I think was double flanker. Um, because you in like your base formation, your two tight ends are on the ball and your receivers are off, and that's a flanker. So that was like double flanker. Um, 22, I think, was flanker because you just had one wide receiver out there that would be off the ball, like in the base formation. Just kind of, it's interesting to think about like all the different names there are for stuff, but like that's just the idea of the personnel on the field. So,
Yeah. And
but I
and
can't
some of
understand it being like weird and annoying whenever it's constantly referenced and you don't know what it is.
yeah, you can usually fast animals, your smaller guys are on the field. Just like
Right.
falcon, eagle, like that type of stuff. But yeah, you've got your traditional. Hey, if you say, "Hey, we're going jumbo," self-explanatory. But
Mm.
yeah, it is. I guess if you didn't grow up playing football, that would be a little interesting. But then, and this will go down like some personnel groupings, just like, "Hey, we're an ace," and then in some systems, ace is a formation.
Yeah.
Uh, some systems you could call it deuce. In some systems, deuce is a formation. D's are usually 2x2. T's are usually 3x1. Now we're just going down a different rabbit hole of formation stuff. Once again, maybe this will all be in football 1-on-1, 101, our summer series.
Yeah. I don't know. It is interesting. And to me, it's the part of football that is really fun, and they don't like the coordination on the sidelines, matching personnel, the logistics behind it is like it's the most difficult thing and the coolest thing to see work that the fans don't watch or know about. On TV, you don't even hardly see it at all. But whenever you're at a game, you can see it. It's like a hockey change going on constantly. Guys coming in, signaling the formation packages and stuff like that. And everyone on the other side's matching. And it's just cool to see that flow back and forth. It's awesome.
We'll see how the helmet communication affects that stuff. But I think there's still going to be a lot of signs. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the personnel stuff usually is still going to be signaled in. It's cool.
Another fun Q&A. I really like doing
Love
this.
it. Love it.
On that note, episode 406 in the books. We'll have a new podcast for you on Sunday if Teddy survives his trip. To be determined. Just a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Hope you all have a fantastic end to your week. Have an awesome weekend. And until next time, we appreciate you all for listening. Do we always do, Oklahoma? Take care of each other.